But looks like we are into the pick and ban here. Again, 6.11. And Nidalee is still going to draw out the first ban despite having that passive nerfed.
Wait to see how these picks and bans change. We do see also the Azir ban on 6.11, which is very, very surprising. We have confirmation that it is 6.11, so some of these bans are already interesting.
There's a difference between Azir and Faker's Azir, so it makes sense that you still want to get rid of it, despite the Emperor's Divide not lasting as long. Still going to have a lot of playmaking potential for Faker.
It's worth knowing the W change, no longer being able to just drop that soldier on the turret to do extra turret damage. One of the things about Azir was he didn't run teleport in the mid lane, and so he could really punish you building attack speed and dropping the soldiers with a Nashor's Tooth and just take your turret when you leave. So that was actually a very relevant nerf as well. Maokai nerf also. We thought this patch would herald the Triforce top laners, and advanced champions like Maokai already really are going to open up a top lane matchup that hopefully has got some carries in it.
Yeah. You see, though, Fiora is going to be the final ban against Duke, and the KDA chart here in the middle of the screen is just pretty pitiful from the side of MVP. If you guys have played Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire, they need to feed MVP more Pokeblocks to stretch that graph.
Oh,
so at the moment, it's not cutting it.
Very, very hard. SKT is, of course, hugely inflated with the start of the season, but honestly, if they keep on their winning ways, who's to say how high a KDA someone like Duke can maintain for a season? They flashed the Echo, of course, saw some significant nerfs on this patch as well. Lock in the Karma. Faker's Karma looked outstanding in their series against Samsung. And not surprised to see it here, and it is a flex pick as well.
Exactly. I was going to say it's a flex pick for Wolf potentially on the support role, but yeah, Faker did look really good against Samsung with that Karma pick, so definitely want to snatch that one off the board. MVP now hanging around with the Graves for Beyond, something that we saw him play in the promotion tournament, and he is pretty good on this. So Beyond, I think, is a very strong jungler, has a lot of potential to grow in LCK, but it needs to tighten up the consistency a little bit more.
I mean, at the end of the day, they've won 3 games, and he has an MVP for each of those 3 victories, including some explosive picks like the full AP Amumu, and then the Gragas they showed such proficiency on in that series win against ESC Ever. They are going to lock in the Graves, which is a bit of a takeaway pick from Blank, who, at least previous to the final of MSI, was very much defaulting to Graves. He jumped to Elise after that, so with Elise being the only other top pick jungler available, it wouldn't be surprising to see him lock it in.
Yeah, we have seen Kindred as well get a ton of nerfs on this patch.
Flash the Alawi. It's coming in the future, because we will see an Alawi in the LCK, but maybe not in this game.
Yeah, would love to see that, but it's going to be the Elise and the Sivir for Bang. So getting that spell shields to stop himself from getting stunned up and solo killed by the Ashe.
So one of the reasons why we might see this Karma pick actually continue to increase in priority, Achilleos, is that it kind of negates one of the advantages of red side. Of course, red side last pick has always been a big thing, and teams on the red side against SK Telecom traditionally have looked for a favorable matchup in the mid lane, or at least a matchup that you can survive in, because Faker, of course, the premier mid laner in League of Legends history. But we're going into a carry top lane meta where it is very important. You can't just pick your Maokai and deal with it. So you really want to keep your last pick on the red side for top lane. You just don't have the flexibility when you have a flex pick like Karma. We've seen the power in the mid lane. The support role is very decided, and this does force out the blind pick top lane of the Aurelia.
Yeah, so we're going to get our first Aurelia here. And Nami for Max in the bottom side. We know that Wolf has been playing a good amount of that as well. Now the question is, what is going to be our top laner and potentially our support?
Even though he's not in the OGN studio, Bang still shows plenty of time trolling Cloud Templar and Dongjun with his Taric and Amumu hovers. Also doubles up as a troll of Beyond with the Amumu hover, so that's pretty good for him.
Need to come up with a good way to fake out Dangood and Caster Jun.
It's true. We see the Trundle, of course one of the champions not affected by the top lane changes.
Yeah, we will in fact. It's going to be Alistar for the support role for Wolf.
Interesting. The reintroduction of Alistar, of course, dropped off a cliff the moment that his ult nerfs came through, and it meant that he took so much more damage in the early game than perhaps you might have first thought when you looked at that patch note. We haven't seen a lot of Alistar at all. It gives them some crazy engage, specifically with the Sivir-Alistar interaction. Elise also going to have pick potential, so gives them more options. And now the question is, what do MVP want to do for their mid lane with the last pick? Going to be laning against Karma, as we expected.
We're hovering the Ahri the first round in. Would be interesting to see if Ian does pick that one up.
I mean, Ian was playing a lot of Ari in the promotion series, but something safer with strong wave clear is needed. They don't already have a wave clear champion with the first 4. Obviously, Ashe and Graves can do their bit, but
Aurelia's ultimate. It's the only wave clear.
Oh, well, it's got a pretty low cooldown, and with Trinity Force now giving 20% CDI, I guess it's up more often, but I know you're being facetious over there, Achilleos.
That I am. It's going to be Varus locked in here for Ian. So definitely a pick that we've seen fall through drafts in the past, in the last couple weeks here, but is starting to rise back up into favor.
So our first 6-11 champion, our first Trinity Force carry is the Aurelia.
Yep.
SKT have done a great job when they picked this Trundle to really snowball Duke. They often set up a situation in the early game where Duke has a 30, 40 CS advantage, and they look for the team fights. Oh, it's why the Karma Sivir is so powerful for them. Because look, in the mid game, if they can once again engineer a situation where their top lane is in a good spot, that 4-man unit with Sivir Karma speed up and Alistair engage, they can make crazy things happen. And Varus is a passive laner, Ashe not known for a laning phase either. It's going to be very much SKT pumping the accelerator in the mid game. It was too good for Samsung. What will MVP be able to do to answer it?
Good question. SK Telecom definitely keeping things consistent with this draft. You know, it's an interesting thing when the Alistar is the most out there pick.
I mean, the Aurelia is pretty cool.
Well, I mean, for just the one side.
Sure.
The Aurelia is definitely really cool, and I'm excited to see what she can do in the hands of a Korean.
Fair enough.
So, looks like we're loading up, getting ready to get into that first game, so we're going to have to keep an eye on the top lane, because Duke, he has been an absolute monster in the top lane right now. 15.6 KDA, ADD. Definitely fighting a very uphill battle against this man. So what kind of pressure can Beyond bring to try and turn the tide of that top lane fight? That's going to be the big question.
I think it's a risky draft from MVP. There's definitely some passivity about it. SKT, one of the best teams to take advantage of it. So let's see if they can get away with their early game, because otherwise another SKT steamroll could come through.
Very well could happen. The SKT hype train is in the station, ready to take off.
Absolutely, waiting to load into game, though. Should be an interesting one. Good luck, MVP. You're going to need it.
That they are, but let's go ahead and get straight into this one. SK Telecom versus MVP. All right, welcome back.
Into a pause.
Into a pause. This is it's a fun way to kick things off, I guess.
Exactly, but at least we got lots to talk about. 6-11's hit. You know, I have a page of written notes here about all the changes. So many changes have come through, and it's fun when, I mean, this is one of those situations where adjusting the top lane, because Riot can be heavy-handed with things where they're like, all right, we want to change things, and this is very much, let's get rid of the tanks.
Yeah.
Let's change things, and the flow-on effect of that is so interesting, because as I mentioned, you don't really gank for your Maokai versus Echo matchup, or really the other way around. They have good lane pressure. You know what's going to happen. We kind of hop on it every cast. Echo's going to apply pressure. Maokai's going to teleport gank. We know about all these things. When it's Aurelia versus Jax, or Kennen versus Aurelia, one of these more skill matchups where there's carry potential, there's lane snowball potential, suddenly junglers visit top. And that's kind of the thing we're going to see increasingly. Now, in this game, I think it's going to be more about rotations, just because Trundle versus Aurelia isn't quite one of those arms race to Trinity Force matchups. But when it's something like Aurelia versus Jax, which is very much a skill matchup, very much whoever gets Trinity Force first is going to have a massive advantage. We're going to see junglers visit top. So that's kind of the fun thing, is that really changes the meta where mid has always been a focus. Getting bot lane ahead has been a focus, but top lane has kind of been a thing for the past since the last time some of these champions were in the meta.
Yeah, shutting out a top laner in the past has not been very easy, because especially with Maokai.
How do you shut out a Maokai?
They're always just going to get tanky regardless. But now, but even with that snowball potential that's there, you can get a Jax ahead significantly. The team still needs to play around that properly to get the split push going, so you can actually capitalize on that advantage that you've garnered for yourself. A good example, if you guys watched the NA LCS just last night, Echo Fox versus Team Liquid, 5-0 Jax, didn't close out the game.
And there is always that potential, but the thing that's gone is, you know, we think back to, again, the last time I cast was with Doa on Saturday, that was MVP versus Ever, and we saw, you know, one of those typical Maokai games where Maokai does get behind, but builds swiftness boots, you know, a bit of health, roams around, still does his thing. Jax and Aurelia can't do that. They very much need to hit item timings. Their power is very much related to that. We're just getting a note here that Beyond's had some settings issues, so that's why we're delayed to get to the start of the game. But yeah, there isn't so much these champions that with little gold can be relevant. These are champions that crave gold, that need gold, that can snowball towards gold and break evens and just kill AD carries outright instantly when they hit those items. So top lane focus is coming.
Yeah. So it'll be good to see how this evolves, especially some of the build paths, because, I mean, with the changes of Trinity Force, are we going to be seeing the same standard builds that we've seen from Jax? Because I haven't been able to watch a ton of the other regions, so I don't catch
so
all
every
of the
top lane
details.
champion's going to be different. You think of a champion like Aurelia, you know, she didn't really build Zeal before. In fact, none of the top laners built Zeal. The fact that crit is gone from Trinity Force, outside of when you get a Triforce proc and a lucky crit, isn't really relevant. So something like Stinger on Aurelia, who can now max W, build Stinger and trade so well with the cooldown reduction and attack speed, Stinger suddenly becomes relevant, because it used to very much be Phage or Sheen first, Zeal always last, usually with the combine. Now we're going to see some champions, like, for example, the Aurelia, go for Stinger. I think Jax is still going to want Phage just because his attack speed, he gets it from his passive. It's not as relevant in the trades. Maybe even Sheen.
Better dueling potential.
For the W burst trades, but there's definitely going to be some little subtle differences there. And I mentioned an item, Boots of Swiftness, you know, with another nerf to Boots of Swiftness. It's like 3 in a row now. Feels like those boots are kind of a thing of the past. And I guess when you have those carry top lanes, something like Ninja Tab is going to be that much more relevant. That saw a little bit of a buff as well in this patch.
2% or something like that increase. And Berserker Greaves are another, you know, pair of boots that got bumped up 5%, now 35% attack speed. So definitely going to be more desirable for those AD carries and even some of those more aggro top laners. We might see them pick those up depending on if the team has enough mobility to back them up. I mean, a squad like SK Telecoms with Karma and Sivir, you got plenty of mobility there. So you could definitely be a little bit greedier in your build.
And that's when Riot was talking about, say, removing boot enchants. So you don't have alacrities anymore and getting like the movement speed numbers down. In my head, I was like, well, Sivir gets better because there's less movement speed in the game. Sivir's ultimate's going to be more relevant. Sivir Karma is that to the nth degree. So we're going to see less flat movement speed, probably no swiftness boots, or, you know, only if it's super necessitated by slow stacking will we see swiftness boots. Suddenly Sivir Karma, the pick potential is insane.
Yeah. Well, just getting the settings all figured out.
Yeah, getting beyond setting all figured out.
Maybe it's not actually settings. They don't want to tell us the real reason.
What is the real reason, Nicholas? You know.
I mean, maybe he got into the champion select and he meant to click out of it because he was just going to say, like, Mario Party Q Protest 216, and then he was going to, like, leave, and he just didn't do it in time.
Oh, you're always up to date in your memes, Achilles. I love it.
You got to be up to date with the memes, man.
When they do that in the big leagues, that's when you know it's really working.
Yeah.
If you can get them to dodge Q and SKT versus MVP, take a couple of bans, and lose a couple of bans for the next series, that's how you know you're really unhappy about Dynamic Gear.
I mean, I wouldn't blame MVP if they tried to dodge out of a game against SK Telecom, let's be real. All right, looks like we do have the settings squared away, or they talked beyond into actually playing out the game. And we are on to the Rift. And it's just going to be a square off with minor invasions on either side. Nothing really going to be happening earlier on.
Yeah, the item builds are pretty similar. Aurelia hasn't really been in the meta since Corrupting Potion was introduced. You know, maybe an edge case in some games, but just a Corrupting Potion start for the Aurelia. Lane swap will be incentivized, you'd think, for SKT, but you can kind of understand looking for standard lanes as well. There's no real demand for it. ADD on this Aurelia will be taking the Fervor for Battle, which is very much, with the Grasp nerfs, become the pretty standard top lane Keystone Mastery.
And Duke's going to be sticking with Grasp of the Undying. Wasn't sure if he was going to go a little bit more aggro. I mean, we've actually seen Fervor Trundles as well.
Yeah, Grasp is actually pretty defensive. You know, there was a time when Grasp, Trundle support and top lane was the standard pickup. Maybe it gives us a bit of a window into the mindset of Duke. Probably tells us he's not going to be looking for too many trades. Fervor's very, very aggressive in there. Get the Stinger, max W, run up. Fervor for Battle will get you a lot of value in those scenarios.
Yep. Of course, the TP advantage is going to be here for SK Telecom, as Faker is running that as his second summoner. Ian just going with the Ghost. So that'll be good for escaping Faker, as he has that tether to try to lock him down. You can see already, though, not going for the lane swap. SKT starting to get a little bit punished in this bottom lane. Not going to be as much sustain here compared to MVP, because they do have that ebb and flow.
I mean, there is Alistair, but of course it's just not the same numbers as you're mentioning. It can be more reliable, but...
That's damage and sustain plus, you know, compared to just sustain.
Yeah, the trade's definitely not going to be great for SK. It's why I thought they might look into a lane swap. Sivir's early laning phase can be a bit of a struggle, and Alistair doesn't excel in the first levels. Not till level 3 does he really have a full kit. But I just want to talk a little bit about, as you mentioned, Ghost Flash for Ian. He had Cleanse originally, and I thought, okay, but what are you cleansing? But if you think about it, as you said, the tether from Karma was a very big and relevant skill during the course of Max.
Oh yeah, Max going forward straight into Blanks. He finds him in the Tri-Brush. Blank's already hammering down
Level 3 Elise.
It has that red buff. It's going to be the flash.
Oh, nice flash.
Not going to get hit up there by Wolf as he goes in for it. So Max does keep himself alive, but that's going to be the heal from Maha as well.
Yeah, really steadfast, waiting till he saw the animation for the headbutt. Remember, that was a flash headbutt, so the reaction time there was excellent from Max, who was one of the most impressive performers in Challenger for MVP. Worth noting that Max, of course, is the same Max that was on CJ Entus back in summer 2015.
Yep. Duke's going pretty aggressive up here, just hammering away at ADT. He doesn't actually have... There's going to be the E-stun coming through, and he flashes as well. Don't think he necessarily needed to do that unless Duke wanted to flash on top of him, but he's going to play it safe, and that's going to be Duke starting to win this lane.
Yeah, without items, you can see that Duke has the advantage early game. Just a Doran's coming back, so that Trinity Force is going to be
really
definitely delayed.
Yep. So already the recall, he's going to be able to pick up a couple of those creeps and try to equalize the CS count, but really solid start for Duke. You can be damn sure that Blank is going to pay a visit up to that top side. For now, though, he's going to pay a visit into the mid lane as Ian still gets rooted by Faker. Flashes away, but here comes the cocoon from Blank. That's going to be first blood going over to Faker. Nicely played.
That's why I was talking about this, Achilles, that the tether is one thing, but at least, you know, you use that, you don't have cleanse available and you die. You cannot ghost away from these ganks when the tether and also the flash is available for the enemy jungle. So the price here is going to be heavy lane presence because no summoner Varus at level 4 before he has the ability to clear those minions out with Q has to stay so far back, and suddenly it's going to be another huge pressure advantage for SK Telecom.
Yeah, not to mention the power spike is going to be there earlier for Faker because Ian is going to be relegated into that tier of the Goddess build, so he's not even going to be able to, you know, really fight under his own turret until he can get a couple items in, so they can just keep pressured out and keep poking him continuously.
Worth knowing that with the top lane.
Yep. ADD's going to go for the ward, so Blank has a very clear shot. The Cocoon does land. The pillar comes down immediately. No flash. This is going to be a dead Aurelia coming out here. Question is, who gets the kill? Looks like it will be Blank. Takes it away with the Q in spider form. And just like that, 2 kills on the board, 1,000 gold lead for SK Telecom. Meanwhile, on the bot side, Maha getting hit up. That's going to be Ignite coming across. He's going to go down. Bang. Finding the kill. A nice double bubble, but doesn't get much done. Max cannot do anything to keep his AD carry alive, and SK Telecom are already starting to run away with this game.
Yeah, the predictions are already looking pretty ironclad. 2 lanes influenced by the jungle, the other one just winning straight up, and now the snowball in mid. Look at these trades. That's 1 Q over to Ian. He's at half health.
Yep.
Still no summoners. There's good base values for Varus. Even with tier, he has a lot more lane presence than other tier laners because his base values are good. But with no summoners, this is the reality for Varus. He has to stand about a foot behind his caster minion line, so getting those auto attacks to actually get last hits is just not something he's going to be able to do in mid lane.
Yep. You can see Faker's already got the Seeker's arm guard in his inventory, so will be able to mitigate a good amount of that damage early on because he's not going to have any items for quite some time. Faker going in, flashes in to get the tether. He's going to get locked down. Blank has the cocoon, and that's all she wrote. Blank finds another kill.
I just don't know how you can watch that last series and then confidently go Ghost Flash against Elise Karma. I saw it, I talked about it, and it's been so well executed. And this is what SK Telecom has done consistently in their 8-game run so far, is that they look at this, they can look at the same things we do, they put them together, and they are clinical about taking every little advantage over the course of the early game.
Well, maybe instead of talking about it, you should talk to Ian about it. You just need to get a translator, sit him down and be like, look, don't do this for the love of God. I mean, save yourself.
He had the cleanse origin, so someone on his team agreed with him that it was all right.
Yeah.
Duke was already winning these trades.
It's like the picture of that dog in the room on fire. This is fine. That's just all of MVP and the jam select. Wow, drop startup comes through and Maha's getting the crap kicked out of him by that giant frog.
Then you come back to the draft, though, Achilles, and you're like, okay, but you first rotationed Graves, then went for some of these weaker laning phase champions. And look, the laning has gone poorly, but it's one of those things where Beyond can't really impact the lanes on Graves. It's just not what the champion does. Usually farms up to 6, usually farms up to the Warrior enchant, then can be very relevant in late-game team fights.
Yep.
Samsung tried drafting a late-game team fight comp against SKT. The issue is that you don't often see past 35 minutes. against SK Telecom unless you're 20,000 gold behind.
Yeah. You know what's really bad? ADD right now in this Aurelia. He's got a cloth armor and boots in his inventory. He's not going to be seeing that Triforce anytime soon, but look at this dive onto the pot side. Maha just disappears under the pressure from Bang and Blank. Max trying to equalize the trade with the Ignite, but it's not going to happen, and Blank is able to pick up the second kill, and that should be the turret going over to SK Telecom to continue stretching this gold lead. That's about to hit 5,000.
SKT have the shortest average game time in the LCK, and doesn't look like it's going to change, Achilles.
Did they beat, or no, CJ had the third fastest average, right? Because they just hot bodied so hard every time.
Yeah, that's definitely not, that's the glass half full way. We're really good at average game time. Shame they're all losses.
We die the fastest. Not a very good stat to have. You can just see the imbalance already across every single lane is building up here as SK Telecom just continues stretching miles ahead of their opponents. Maha, 42 CS to 77 that Bang has. He's got 2 kills, already has the Berserker Greaves and the BF Sword to a Pickaxe Ash. Oh, this is a bad look.
Don't need to be an analyst to realize that there are worlds that separate these particular two teams. MVP just promoted to the LCK and honestly had a very impressive win against Ever. Okay, they had some poor plays in that series. It certainly wasn't on the level of the SKT Samsung series that came after it, but there were definitely times they looked good, but those were usually after they got an advantage in the mid to late game, and certainly not when they were in this much of a hole. 4,000 gold lead pre-10 minutes is craziness on this patch.
Yep. SK Telecom just going to be like, you know what, 6.11, we could still snowball a game off of these old picks. Doesn't matter. We don't need that Aurelia or Jax or your Alawi. Get those tentacles out of here.
You just wonder what MVP thought this game would play out. When they picked this comp, they were like, okay, this is how we play it. You need to get Aurelia ahead, but Graves is not the jungler to do that. And if you ever get behind with this comp, if the Trinity Force is delayed, if Ian has his summoners blown, and Graves is just happily farming, can't really gank lanes, like, the downside potential of a comp like this is massive, and sure, some teams can pull it off, and definitely you can get away with it against some of the weaker teams. Against ESC Ever, a team that struggled in the early game and you could blind pick TF against, you could probably get away with this comp. But against SK Telecom T1, a hope and a prayer is nowhere near enough to get away with a draft like this from MVP.
Yep. They need more likes on their Facebook posts. Get more prayers in.
Will they draft better if I like their MVP post?
Maybe? I don't know. Leave a comment.
Bring back the Amumu.
The likes will do it. Yeah, there we go. That actually could surprise SK Telecom enough to find some success. I doubt it, though.
It's that time, Achilles.
Yes, it is. ADD tries to dash forward, just trying to get the hell away from them, but Blank's going to go deep here. Duke already taking up the tower. They'll find the kill, and they'll exit safely. This is just surgical at the moment from SK Telecom. Duke going in onto E, and here comes Beyond. We'll stop the forward aggression, and he just goes and flashes out as he doesn't see Wolf dashing up the river. He's like, nope, don't want anything to do with you just like that.
There's a 2-for-1 sale on summoners, Achilles.
3 summoners have gone down.
Oh, boy.
Buy 2, get 1 free.
Yeah.
SK Telecom, they just take advantage of a very good sale.
I like how there's all flashes available in SKT. And,
they haven't had the only time they've had the flash really was aggressively. Wolf going in for the gank and bot, Faker going in for the tether, Blank getting the cocoon. It's just endless aggression from these guys.
SKT gonna pick up the Rift Herald, grow the advantage for Duke in the top lane. 40 CS odd, and now the Rift Herald buff means those trades, which are looking pretty good at level 1, are only gonna get better.
Yep. Haven't gone for the Mountain Drake yet. They want a slight handicap food for MVP, so leave that one on the board for a little bit of time.
I mean, it's a good point you bring up. You're talking about the Drake, obviously, and again, setting behind an Aurelia is actually probably more important than picking up, say, an early Cloud Drake especially, but a lot of the Drakes, again, these snowball top laners, suddenly playing around the bot side of the map and not influencing the top lane will actually have that bigger cost to it. So not going to be relevant in a game like this, but increasingly, we will see teams kind of have to shift their macro priorities around some of these top lane matchups.
Yeah, right now you don't have to give a damn about that Aurelia. Gonna be a TP coming in though. Blank maybe a little bit too far forward. The arrow not quite there yet for Maha. Blank flashing away. Bubble not gonna connect. That should be the end of it. So TP gonna be used with little gain. This opens up Duke to go for an invade over into the red buff. So MVP are still just hemorrhaging objectives.
If you just want an idea of how to play League of Legends, once again, just watch these SKT VODs. They see the teleport come in, the death is avoided. Duke realizes the perfect time to go invade the jungle. Faker already had massive lane pressure. He gets more. SKT actually get the bot lane turret because they had to back away. They might even turn it into Drake as well. Well, the perfect game is on, Achilles.
It is. SK Telecom looking for the shutout. And getting blank right there was the best chance that MVP has had of getting any kind of stat onto the board, and they still weren't able to do it. You can see even with Faker in this mid lane, he's just whittling down this tower, will be able to take out the tier 1.
He's not whittling down the turret. If you notice, he's denying CS from the mid lane.
Well, that's you.
You don't often see enough lane pressure at 13 minutes to be denying the enemy mid lane, who's a Varus who can farm from kilometers away, but that's this game.
I told you, Faker's going to get that damage in first. Ian just won't be able to stand up near the turret.
It's not a storyline to be denying waves from, say, underfed top laners or an Irelia, as you can see on your screen, but in the mid lane, zoning away a ranged AD carry is just Faker things.
It's a very strong feat indeed.
Duke's like, I'm not really that interested.
Oh, well, this is just going to draw the TP here from Faker as they decide to dive in. Duke's still very healthy, going to go in for the chop. ADD taking a ton of damage. Q not really going to hit, but the tether is there. Ian zipping his way up here. The chain of corruption will land on the Faker. The turret goes down. This actually could be an opening for MVP. Faker trying to get the damage on the ADD, flashes forward. He dashes for it, and he's not going to be able to solidify the kill. That's going to be turnaround. Duke flashes out beyond. On his lonesome, looking for the double kill. It's in his eyes. Faker's going to go aggressive, and Duke is just healing so damn much. The tether comes through. He's not going to be able to pick up anything. It's a 2v3, and SK Telecom remain on top.
The closest part of the game because the perfect game on the line, and they do just fine.
Yeah,
got a delayed 3 kills over to SKT.
And they're going to lose a top tier 1 and a bottom tier 2.
I don't know if MVP is going to be getting many more scrim blocks with SKT after a performance like this in the big leagues.
I don't know if anyone's going to want to scrim block with MVP after this performance.
No, look, they've been really good recently. It's just...
Yeah, they certainly have had their moments, but against this team, I mean, SK Telecom have been looking more dominant than ever before.
So this is interesting. So Duke thought about just going to proxy, but then he realized he had the teleport coming in, and once you miss the mantra Q, then things change, especially with Ian showing up. They're smart to turn onto the turret.
This is when it got a little shaky.
Exactly. Now, he's in a minion wave, so Duke's smart. For a lot of this, he fights in a minion wave. The ultimate damage doesn't really connect for Graves. Duke feels super low. He's one auto attack away, but Graves, because of the nature of his auto attack, can't auto attack him through a minion wave. And then with all the AP and the snowball, the shield is casual 300 shielding. The lifesteal is true, and goodbye MVP.
Yep. It's 11.4 thousand at 16 minutes.
Titanic Hydra the pickup for Duke.
God,
I don't know if you can really
disgusting.
Examine the choice of Tiamat items. I would have preferred Ravenous. I feel like Ravenous kind of fits the meta a bit more now, but with a Sheen in his inventory, could be Iceborne, could be Trinity Force. Probably going to be Iceborne, but...
He just doesn't want to give AD a single chance, so he wants to go for that tankier build to start things off. Beyond's going to get caught, takes a bit of damage, but he's going to be all right. But we can see now just the Phage coming through with the Sapphire Crystal for the Sheen. ADD is just so far away from that Triforce.
And just returning to what I was talking about, there's Faker.
Yep, there is Faker, and there's Beyond. He gets popped up in the air, and he flashes out, but he's still going to go down to the Ignite from Wolf. Now the TP coming through as Duke arrived. Trying to get onto somebody, but a nice tidal wave does come through from Max, and they start turning things around as far as his defense goes. They will be able to hold on to the tier 2 in the mid side, but Bang is just keeping busy up top.
All right, just pushing solo. Wasn't interested in reacting to mid. Was probably called off having to come through. They still get the turret, so no gain at all for MVP.
This could be like a 25-minute game.
It could be even shorter than that. It could also be a surrender, just given how far ahead SKT are.
Oh, look at ADD. No, well, he does have the flash, but he's not using it. Dashes over to Wolf, then flashes away. So good escape route there. So playing the patient game, but still loses that summoner spell and still loses the tier 2 tower. And SK Telecom are going to continue their romp through the jungle and look to shut out MVP.
They have been aggressive. It hasn't certainly been a tutorial victory-esque performance from SKT. We know that from them. We saw Faker flashing under turrets on his Karma the last time he played, but everyone just overloaded with items on the side of SKT, and even though they chain CC so well onto Faker, there's no item timings on these champions to really putting anywhere near lethal damage onto Faker.
Yeah. Dirk now just finished for Ian as he gets a Null Magic Mantle and looks for the Hex Drinker, but I think it might be a little too late for that, my friend.
A nerfed Swiftness boots, a Dirk, and certainly a tier helps, but...
Yeah. And you can see Faker not even worrying about the spell penetration from the Sorcerer's Shoes, just picking up Mark Treads for the tenacity to get out of the Chain of Corruption faster. Already has a Zonia's and an Athene's Unholy Grail with a needlessly large rod in the pocket. This is just disgusting.
It's worth noting, actually, Athene's Unholy Grail. You know, we haven't seen that item.
Really good for any caster that has shields.
Exactly. It's no longer one of the staple mid-lane regen items next to Morellonomicon. Now very much shield-focused, but the build from Faker does one thing well. You don't stay tenacity long, so you get shields in and you have high AP value, and now the Athenes also for the shield bearers. It's very much a turret diving build from Faker.
Used to see Athenes all the time, and people still see it in solo queue every now and then. People will build it, and it's like, oh, well, it's got MR on it. It's like, but it's got like barely any MR. It's like 25 MR.
People don't read patch notes, Kilios.
Apparently not. What's this big number on my Athenes? That's weird. Chains go out, Duke gets locked up, but they're not going to be able to do anything with that. And SKT are just ready to siege up at the mid and him tower. Top and bottom waves, they're in decent positions, but they actually could just hover around here, wait for this dragon to come up in about 20 seconds.
And it's just one of those games where MVP just keep losing advantages. They don't even have access to the shallowest of jungle creeps. They basically only get the minions that crash onto their inhibitor turret. Such is the lead for SKT.
Yep, TP's going to come through here from Faker as he rejoins the team. Not only being thrown out, Wolf taking the brunt of the damage. Now pops the, I don't know, yeah, pop the Alistar ultimate. Goes in, finds Maha on the knockup. That's going to be the Alistar ultimate coming across, and then Ashe absolutely gets melted. Faker going to find the kill. ADD just trying to run away, but he can't do so. It's going to be another one picked up. The inhibitor line being broken before 20 minutes. The SK Telecom are just looking unbeatable, both in this match and this split. And they're going to take that and say, all right, you know what, let's go get ourselves a Cloud Drake.
When you look at the sum of 9 games, and on your hands, on one hand, maybe you can count the mistakes SKT has made, even minor mistakes, even if you want to nitpick, such has been their level of performance this season. A season where Coma, infamously before the start of the season, gave pause and said, hey, give us a chance. No chances, SKT. You don't need it.
Now it's all of the other teams saying, please, God, SK Telecom, give us a chance.
This team looks unassailable. They have so many different records. Obviously, have won all tournaments to be won. But things like a perfect season kind of come into your head, and perfect match season might be achievable. Perfect game season, an outside chance.
Yep. Well, they're trying to get onto Duke here, but the slow's already been used, so he'll just zip himself away. Yeah, Riot needs to make more tournaments so SK Telecom can go win them. They need more trophies.
Siphon some more money to China, get some of these players bought out for next season.
Yeah. I just like to imagine that Coma has like this nice study that he just sits in, smokes a pipe, and it's just all of the trophies and the stuffed heads of all of the teams.
You get to keep the trophies in Korea.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. You don't get to do that in the other regions. Very greedy. Trying to start up this Baron that's going to be ADD going in, but no one's there to back him up, and he goes down. The Baron falls as well as Blank smites it out. Now the chase is on as Ian's going to get tethered up. Bubble's not going to connect. Well, it does connect on the Faker, but it doesn't matter. Too little too late. He still gets popped by the back end of that Mantra Q. Trying to get on to Max. Throws out the tidal wave flash by Faker with the tether. He's going to go down, and that should be the game here. Super Creep's knocking down on the Nexus doors. First turret going to fall, and this is going to be SK Telecom winning in 22 minutes.
Let's watch the gold value as the game ends. It's currently a 20,000 gold lead. Almost 1,000 gold lead a minute. 18 kills in 21 minutes. That sounds like an LPL match. All 18 are to SKT. A perfect game achieved, and they are looking immense.
That they are, and it's looking like a very early night here for the